Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. In this video, let's talk about the relationship between the PMBOK guide and the standard for project management. In one of our previous videos where I was talking about how the PMBOK guide 6th edition is being retired or is in the process of something that PMI terms as sunsetting, I'll share a link to that video in the description below. But that's where I talked about how the PMBOK guide has two sections. It is a set of two books, that is the PMBOK guide itself and then the standard for project management. That's where I received a question. What is the relationship between the standard for project management and the PMBOK guide itself? And this is something that you need to understand because the relationship is actually very, very important. So let's move on and try to understand what this relationship is all about. So when I mentioned the previous video that we went over to talk about why was PMI sunsetting or retiring the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, we talked about this, right? We talked about this FAQ as well. It said that the 7th edition, which was published in July 2021, it includes the current standard for project management, the ANSI accredited standard for project management. So 7th edition includes this. The 6th edition contained a 2017 standard, which has been superseded by the 2021 standard. So this is the only reason that PMI has given as to why the 6th edition is being retired, and of course there was a need to come up with the new 7th edition of the PMBOK guide. Now this is where this is a picture from the 7th edition itself, the book. And as you can see, the standard for project management in the 6th edition, this is PMBOK Guide 6th edition. This is the content in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. The standard for project management, it contained process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control, and then closing, right? This is what the 6th edition contained. This was the standard for project management in 2017. But in 2021, in the 7th edition, the standard of project management does not contain these process groups. This contains something totally different. It talks about the project management principles. 12 in total, right? So it talks about stewardship, team, stakeholders, value, system thinking, leadership, tailoring, quality, complexity, risk, adaptability, and resiliency and change. So these are the 12 project management principles that the new standard talks about in the 7th edition. It also talks about system for value delivery, which is something which was not part of the previous standard for project management. So that is one of the reasons why 6th edition, that is the only reason why 6th edition is being retired, and one of the reasons why we needed a 7th edition of the PMBOK guide. Now there's a digital content platform, PMI Standards Plus. This is where you will be able to access content from the 6th edition if you basically need. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly is ANSI and what is this ANSI standard? Because remember, we are talking about the relationship between this standard and the PMBOK guide. And we just saw in the previous slide how there's a big change in this standard, which has led to the 6th edition being retired or sunsetting, the word that PMI uses. And then we also have come up with, PMI has also come up with the 7th edition. So ANSI, it stands for American National Standards Institute. This is a private non-profit organization, and it oversees the development of voluntary consensus standards for products, services, process, systems, and personnel in the United States. The organization also coordinates US standards with international standards so that American products can be used worldwide. So this is what American National Standards Institute is all about. Now it can accredit standards that are developed by representatives of other standards as well, organizations, government agencies, consumer groups, companies, and others. So there's a project management standard that PMI has developed and ANSI has actually accredited it, right? So these standards, they ensure that the characteristics and performance of products are consistent, that people use the same definition and terms, and that products are tested the same way. So what is most applicable to the project management standard that PMI has developed and got it accredited from ANSI is that the people use the same definition and terms of project management across the globe. That is one of the biggest reasons why the PMBOK guide exists. That is also one of the biggest reasons why the standard for project management exists in the PMBOK guide. Okay, let's move on. So we just talked about how PMBOK Guide 7th edition is here, and our training program PM101 contains content from the PMBOK Guide 7th edition as well. So it is totally free. This is something, if you're a newbie in the world of project management, it can definitely help you out. So head over to pmclounge.com/pm101-PMBOK 7 and you can get access to the free training program. Check it out. Okay, so we talked about the ANSI standard. Now let's talk about what is PMBOK Guide. So PMBOK Guide, this is the beautiful picture of the 7th edition of the PMBOK Guide, and it is basically a guide to the project management body of knowledge, because the body of knowledge is a C, and this is just a guide to that body of knowledge, that C, right? So it is PMI's flagship publication, and it is also a fundamental resource for effective project management in any industry. That is PMBOK Guide for you. Okay, now let's establish the relationship between the PMBOK guide and the ANSI standard for project management. So there are 8 performance domains in the PMBOK 7. So earlier we used to have knowledge areas. Knowledge areas are no longer included in PMBOK 7. You won't find knowledge areas in that book. What you will find are 8 performance domains. These are the one: stakeholders, team, development approach and lifecycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, uncertainty. These are the 8 performance domains included in the PMBOK 7. Now, the work in these performance domains is guided by 12 principles of project management. These 12 principles, if you remember, is something that come from the standard for project management. So whatever work that you do, let's say when we talk about the stakeholders performance domain, whatever work that you're going to do in this performance domain, that work is guided by the 12 principles of project management. So these are the 12 principles of project management. These principles are of course included in the standard for project management. So a principle, what is a principle? It is a fundamental norm, truth, or value. It is described in the standard for project management. So, a standard for project management, it describes a principle as a fundamental norm, truth, or value. Now, the 12 principles of project management, they are defined in the standard for project management, the ANSI standard, right? And they provide guidance for the behavior of people involved in projects. So these are the guidelines, right? These are the guiding principles for all the peoples that are involved in the projects and performing these tasks and working on the performance domains of every single project. Finally, principles guide behavior. Performance domains, they basically present broad areas of focus in which to demonstrate that behavior. So a broad area is, let's say, stakeholder. What kind of behavior you should have when you are dealing with the stakeholder performance domain? You should be diligent, respectful, and caring. You should recognize, evaluate, and respond to any system interactions. You should navigate complexity. You should optimize risk responses. You should do all these good things that are mentioned as the 12 principles of project management, right? So even when you're, let's say, doing planning, you should your behavior in planning should be guided by these 12 principles in which are mentioned in the standard for project management. So I hope you understand the relationship between the ANSI standard, which talks about the principles, and the PMBOK guide, which talks about the principles as well as the performance domains, the 8 performance domains. So, question for this video: have you heard about PMI Standards Plus? Do you know what it is? Let me know in the comments. Definitely looking forward to your answers. So I hope you were now able to establish and understand the relationship between the PMBOK guide and the standard for project management. And I hope you also understand how deep that relationship really is. Like, share, subscribe, check out our website pmclounge.com. And if you like our work, consider contributing at pmclounge.com/contribute. Thank you.